My name is Jason. I'm 30 years old. And 3 months ago, my boss, a married black CEO 15 years older than me, leaned across her glass desk on a Thursday afternoon and said, "Pretend to be my fiancé at this dinner." I should have said no. I should have walked out right then. But I didn't. And by the time her husband walked into that restaurant with another woman on his arm, it stopped feeling like an act and started feeling like the one line we were both about to cross. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments. Because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I stared at the ceiling of my cramped apartment, listening to the hum of traffic outside, replaying the taste of her lips for the 100th time that night. Angela Price, my boss, married, 15 years older than me. And an hour ago, sitting in my parked car outside her gated house, I'd kissed her. Not a peck on the cheek for appearances, not an accident, a real kiss. Soft, brief, but undeniably real. My jacket was tossed on the passenger seat, my tie hung loose around my neck, and my fingers still carried the faint smell of her perfume, citrus and jasmine, expensive and warm. The engine had been humming in the quiet. Her house glowed behind its iron gate, all modern glass and perfect angles. A museum of a life. She'd turned to me in the darkness of the car, her hand still resting on the door handle, and said, "Thank you." I should have said, "You're welcome," and driven away. Instead, I'd leaned in. She didn't pull back. When we separated, neither of us spoke. She just stepped out of the car, closed the door carefully, and walked toward her front entrance without looking back. I sat there for another 10 minutes, unable to move, replaying the whole night in my head. The investor dinner, the private dining room with its candles and crystal, the moment I called her my fiancée in front of Richard Hall and his table full of old money contacts, the moment her actual husband walked in with another woman on his arm. If you want to know how I ended up kissing my married boss in front of her perfect house, you have to go back to 2 weeks before that night. 2 weeks earlier, on a Monday morning, my alarm went off at 6:47 a.m. in my shoebox apartment. I slapped it silent, stumbled into the shower, and tried to calculate whether I could afford to grab coffee on the way or needed to make instant at home. I grabbed instant. The subway was packed. I stood wedged between a guy in paint-splattered jeans and a woman listening to something angry through her headphones. I checked my phone. 3 emails already from the office. One from Karen Brooks, Angela's assistant, reminding everyone about the quarterly review meeting at 10. I worked in strategy at a mid-sized consulting firm downtown. Glass tower, expensive view. My actual workspace was a shared desk on the 14th floor with a coffee ring stain I'd given up trying to remove. Angela's office was on the 23rd, corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the whole city. I'd been inside it maybe a dozen times in the year I'd worked there, always for reviews or special project debriefs, always intimidated. When I walked into the building that morning, I nodded at security, rode the elevator up, and found Maria Lopez already at her desk. Maria was 36, sharp as hell, and the only person in the office who treated me like an actual human instead of disposable junior talent. "You look tired," she said, not looking up from her screen. "Didn't sleep great." "You never sleep great." She glanced at me. "Coffee? Had instant?" "Gross." I dropped my bag at my desk and pulled up the deck I'd been working on all weekend. Client analysis, projected revenue models, the kind of work that kept you employed but never got you noticed. At 9:53, the whole strategy team filed into the glass-walled conference room. Angela walked in at exactly 10 arc. She always did that. Never early, never late. Just precise. She was 44, black, and the kind of beautiful that didn't need to announce itself. Tailored gray suit, hair pulled back, wedding ring catching the light as she set her tablet on the table. Her perfume reached me a second later. Citrus and jasmine. Morning, everyone. Her voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice that made you sit up straighter without realizing it. Let's start with Q3 performance. The meeting lasted an hour. Halfway through, Angela stopped on a slide I'd built and said, "Jason, this projection model, walk me through your assumptions." My throat went dry. Sure. I based it on the last 2 quarters of client retention data, adjusted for seasonal trends and... Good. She nodded. This is exactly the kind of thinking we need going into the investor conversations. Maria kicked my foot under the table. I didn't look at her. After the meeting, people filtered out. Angela stayed behind, reviewing notes on her tablet. Karen appeared in the doorway like a ghost. "Angela, you have the board prep at 11:30, then lunch with David at 1. David. Her husband. Angela didn't look up. "Cancel lunch. Move the deck review to 1 instead." Karen's expression didn't change. Noted. As I passed Angela on my way out, she glanced up briefly. "Good work today, Jason." "Thanks." That was it. 10 seconds of eye contact, a compliment. Nothing unusual. But I thought about it the rest of the day anyway. 2 days later, on a Wednesday evening, most of the office had cleared out. I was still at my desk, tweaking a client presentation that was due the next morning. My eyes burned. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Across the open floor, Angela's office light was still on. At 8:47, Karen appeared at my desk. She had her coat on, bag over her shoulder. "Jason, Angela needs the updated revenue numbers. Can you bring them up?" I blinked. "Now? Unless you'd prefer I wake you at 6 a.m. to do it." I grabbed the folder and took the elevator to 23. Angela's office door was half open. I knocked on the frame. "Come in." She'd kicked off her heels. They sat neatly beside her desk. Her blazer was draped over the back of her chair. She looked softer, tired. "Revenue numbers," I said, holding up the folder. "Thank you." She gestured to the small table by the window. "Set them there. Want coffee?" I hesitated. Sure." There was an espresso machine in the corner. Sleek, expensive, the kind that hissed and gurgled like it was annoyed at being used. Angela made us both small cups, handed me one, and sat down across from me at the table. We went through the numbers. She asked questions. I answered. It felt normal, professional. Then she said, "You're not from money, are you?" I looked up. "What?" "Your resume. State school. No legacy connections. You worked 2 jobs through college." "Yeah." I set my cup down carefully. "Is that a problem?" "No." She smiled faintly. "It's refreshing. Half the people here got their jobs because their dad played golf with someone on the board." I didn't know what to say to that. She turned toward the window, staring out at the city. The lights stretched out below us like scattered stars. "David's on another golf trip," she said quietly. "3rd one this month." David Price, her husband, old money, sat on the board. I'd seen him in photos on the company website, always smiling in that smooth, practiced way rich people smiled. "Must be nice," I said, immediately regretting how stupid that sounded. Angela laughed, actually laughed. "Nice? Sure." When I stood to leave, I handed her a folder, and our fingers brushed against the silk of her blouse sleeve. We both pulled back. "Sorry," I muttered. "It's fine." I left, rode the elevator down, walked out into the cool night air. My phone buzzed. "Maria. Still in the Glass Palace?" I texted back. "Heading home now. You're her favorite, you know." I didn't reply. When I got home, I microwaved leftovers, scrolled through social media, and saw a photo from 6 months ago. Angela and David at some charity gala. Her in a black gown, him in a tux. Both smiling. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I stared at it longer than I should have, then put my phone down and tried to sleep. Over the next week, small things started to add up. A morning nod from Angela in the hallway, an email at 11 p.m. asking my opinion on a pitch strategy, her stopping by my desk to ask if I wanted to sit in on a client call. Maria noticed. She's never brought junior staff into client calls before, Maria said one afternoon in the break room. Maybe she just needs extra support. Uh-huh. What's that supposed to mean? Maria stirred her coffee slowly. Just be careful. Bosses don't usually pick people at random. I wanted to argue. But I didn't. The office was buzzing that week. Rumors of restructuring. Budget cuts. People whispering about who was safe and who wasn't. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, I walked past Angela's office and heard raised voices. I slowed. Angela was on the phone, her back to the door. David, it's one dinner. Richard Hall could bring in $50 million in funding, and you can't be bothered to show up? Silence. I don't care if you're in town. This is my career, not a PR stunt for your image. More silence. Fine. Do whatever you want. You always do. The call ended. I heard the faint tap of her wedding ring against the glass desk. I should have kept walking. Instead, I stood there like an idiot until she turned and saw me. Jason. Sorry. I didn't mean to. Come in. Close the door. My stomach dropped. I stepped inside. Closed the door. Stood there awkwardly while she sat down behind her desk, shoulders tight, jaw set. After a long pause, she said, I need a favor. There's an investor dinner next week, Angela said, her voice steady now, controlled. Richard Hall, he's old school, conservative. He values stability, family men, the whole package. I nodded, not sure where this was going. Showing up alone would raise questions I can't afford right now. Okay. She looked at me directly. I need you to come with me. Sure. I can prep talking points, help with the pitch. No. She exhaled slowly. I need you to pretend to be my fiancé. The words hung in the air. I laughed, nervous, confused. Wait, what? David won't go. He's unavailable. The way she said it made it clear that wasn't the whole truth. If I show up alone to a dinner where Richard expects to see a stable, committed partnership, it undermines everything I've built. But you're married. I know. And I'm your employee. I know that too. I ran a hand through my hair. Angela, this could blow up. HR, the board, your actual husband. It's one night, she said quietly. A performance. Nothing more. I wanted to say no. I should have said no. Instead I said, what if you can't go back from this? She looked at me for a long time. Then I'll deal with it. We spent the next hour sketching out a backstory. How we met. How long we'd been together. What kind of wedding we were planning. We borrowed details from real life. Late-night coffee in her office became our first real conversation. A shared joke during a presentation became the moment I knew. It felt disturbingly easy. When I finally left her office, the sun had set. I stood in the elevator, staring at my reflection in the metal doors, and wondered what the hell I'd just agreed to. Maria texted me again. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost, I replied. Just tired. At home, I opened my laptop and Googled fine dining etiquette and how to act engaged. Then I closed the laptop, lay on my bed, and stared at the ceiling until I fell asleep. The days leading up to the dinner passed in a blur of nerves and rehearsals. Angela kept her distance in public. Professional, polite, but twice she pulled me into her office to go over the story again. "How did I propose?" she asked. During a weekend in the mountains? Small cabin, no big production, just us." "Good. And the ring?" "You wanted something simple. I'm saving for the real one." She smiled faintly. "You're better at this than I expected." Karen handed me an itinerary on Friday. Pickup time, restaurant address, guest list. Maria cornered me at lunch. "You're acting weird," she said. "I'm fine." "You sure? Because you look like someone about to do something incredibly stupid." I forced a laugh. "It's just work stress." She didn't believe me, but she let it go. That afternoon, Angela and I had our final run-through. We sat side by side on the leather couch in her office, going over answers to potential questions. "What do you love most about him?" she asked, testing me. "You," I said, then corrected. "I mean, your honesty, the way you don't pretend to be something you're not." She looked at me, really looked at me. For a second, the script disappeared. Then Karen knocked, and the moment broke. "Ready for Monday?" Angela asked as I stood to leave. "As ready as I'll ever be." She nodded. "Thank you, Jason. I mean that." I left early to go home and change. Stood in front of my bathroom mirror in a borrowed tie, practicing the words. "My fiancé." "This is Angela, my fiancé." It sounded insane every time. But I pressed the shirt, polished my shoes, set my alarm. And when Monday came, I got in that town car with her, and we drove toward the restaurant where everything would change. The car ride was quiet. The driver was professional, invisible. The engine hummed beneath us, wrapping us in a strange, private silence. Angela wore a dark green dress. Elegant, expensive, her shawl draped over her shoulders. Her perfume filled the small space between us. No wedding ring. I noticed, but didn't ask. "Nervous?" she said. "Terrified." She smiled. "You'll be fine. Just follow my lead." We went over last-minute details. Pet names. She'd call me Jay if things got too formal. Timeline. We'd been engaged for 4 months. Wedding plans, small ceremony, still deciding on location. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. She glanced at it, then silenced her phone and slipped it into her purse. When the car hit a bump, I reached out instinctively to steady her. My hand brushed the silk of her sleeve. We both pulled back. "Sorry," I said. "It's okay." But neither of us looked at each other after that. The restaurant appeared ahead. Warm light, valet stand, couples stepping out of cars in expensive clothes. The driver opened Angela's door first, then mine. As I stepped out, she took my hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. "We start now," she whispered. And we walked inside together. The private dining room glowed with candlelight. Crystal glasses, white tablecloths, soft classical music in the background. Richard Hall stood as we entered. Mid-50s, sharp suit, the kind of smile that assessed you while pretending to welcome you. "Angela?" He shook her hand, then turned to me. "And you must be?" "Jason Miller," I said, shaking his hand firmly. "Good to meet you, sir." "Pleasure." His eyes lingered on me just long enough to feel like a test. Then he smiled at Angela. "You have excellent taste." We sat, ordered drinks, made small talk about the restaurant, the wine list, the unseasonably warm weather. I watched Angela shift into CEO mode, confident, charming, but every so often she'd glance at me and I'd catch something softer underneath. An older couple at the table asked how we met. Angela answered smoothly. "Jason worked on a project for me last year. Very late nights, too much coffee." She smiled. "One night he made a joke that actually made me laugh. That was it. I added, "She has a very specific laugh. You know when it's real?" Richard chuckled. "Young love." The word love hung in the air. Angela's hand found mine under the table. Squeezed once. Let go. The first course arrived. I fumbled with the oyster fork. Angela noticed and subtly adjusted hers to show me which one to use. Class difference whispered between us, but she covered for me every time. Midway through the second course, my phone buzzed. I checked it under the table. A photo from Karen. A screenshot of a social media post. David Price. Tagged at a bar 2 blocks away. Timestamp, 11 minutes ago. My stomach dropped. I showed Angela under the table. Her fingers tightened around her wine glass. The soft clink of her ring, which I suddenly realized she'd put back on, echoed faintly. She looked up at me. Composed face, panicked eyes. The door to the private room opened. And David walked in. David Price walked into that private dining room like he owned it. Tall, tailored navy suit, expensive watch catching the candlelight, and on his arm a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-30s, blonde, stunning in a way that felt calculated. The room went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Richard stood immediately, face lighting up. "David, I didn't know you were joining us." David smiled, that smooth, easy smile. "Couldn't miss it. You know me, Richard. Always supportive of Angela's work." His eyes found Angela, then me, then our hands, which were still barely touching on the table. Angela recovered first. She stood, pulling me up with her by sheer force of presence. "David, what a surprise." Her voice was perfectly measured. No anger, no shock, just control. David leaned in and kissed her cheek. Professional, distant. Then he turned to me, extending his hand. "And you are?" I shook it. Firm grip. "Jason Miller, Angela's fiancé." The word tasted strange in my mouth. David's smile didn't waver, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Fiancé. How modern." He introduced the woman beside him. "This is Claire. She's consulting on a project for the foundation." Claire smiled politely, clearly uncomfortable. Richard, oblivious or pretending to be, gestured for everyone to sit. "Well, this is wonderful. The more the merrier." The rest of the dinner was a performance inside a performance. David sat across from Angela and me, asking questions that sounded friendly but landed like small cuts. "So, Jason, how long have you been in strategy?" "About a year." "Ah, fresh talent. Angela's always had an eye for potential." Angela's hand found mine again under the table. This time she didn't let go. "Jason's been instrumental in our Q3 success," she said smoothly. "He has instincts most senior consultants still lack." David smiled. "I'm sure he does." Richard, thankfully, shifted the conversation to markets and projections. Safe territory. But every few minutes, David would make another comment. Subtle digs wrapped in compliments. "It's refreshing to see someone so young and ambitious. Angela's always been good at mentoring. You two must have such interesting conversations." I wanted to throw my wine in his face. Instead, I squeezed Angela's hand back and kept my voice steady. When dessert arrived, David excused himself to take a call. Claire followed him out. The moment they were gone, Richard leaned forward. "I have to say, Angela, you and Jason make a lovely couple. Very grounded, very real." Angela smiled. "Thank you. It's rare to see that kind of partnership these days, especially in our world." I felt the weight of what he was really saying. This performance was working. We were selling the exact image she needed. But it was also becoming harder to tell where the performance ended, and something else began. After dinner, we stood in the restaurant's hallway while the valet brought cars around. David appeared beside us, alone now. Claire had already left in a separate car. He leaned close to Angela, voice low. "Be careful who you use as props, Angela. Some people don't understand the rules of the game." I heard every word. Angela's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed even. "Good night, David." He nodded at me once, then walked out into the night. Richard shook our hands, still beaming. "Wonderful evening. Let's talk specifics next week, Angela." "Absolutely." And then it was just the two of us, standing under the restaurant awning, waiting for the town car. Angela's shoulders finally dropped. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "For what?" "For dragging you into that." "You didn't drag me. I said yes." The car pulled up. We got in. The door closed, the engine hummed, the city blurred past the windows. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then Angela said, "I didn't know he'd show up." "I know. With her. I know. He does this. Shows up just to remind me that he can, that he controls the image as much as I do." I looked at her. Really looked at her. In the dim light of the car, she looked exhausted. The polished CEO mask had slipped, and underneath was just a woman trying to hold together something that had been broken for a long time. "You deserve better than this," I said. She laughed softly, bitterly. "Better doesn't exist in my world, Jason. There's just functional and non-functional. That's bleak. That's marriage." We pulled up outside her gate. The house glowed behind the iron bars. Perfect, cold, empty. Angela turned to me. "I'll call Richard tomorrow and smooth things over. You don't have to worry about any blowback from tonight." "I'm not worried about that." "Then what are you worried about?" I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, but I couldn't say it. She reached for the door handle, then stopped, turned back. "Thank you," she said. "For staying. For not running when David walked in. For—" She didn't finish. Neither of us moved. The space between us felt impossibly small. I leaned in. She didn't pull back. Our lips met, soft, hesitant. A kiss that lasted maybe 3 seconds but felt like it rewrote everything. When we pulled apart, Angela's eyes were wide, shocked at herself. "I should go," she whispered. "Yeah." She stepped out of the car quickly, not looking back, leaving her shawl on the seat. I watched her walk to her door, unlock it, disappear inside. The driver waited patiently. I picked up the shawl. Soft fabric, still warm, still carrying her scent. "Home, sir?" the driver asked. "Yeah. Home." I didn't sleep that night. I got back to my apartment around midnight, hung Angela's shawl on the back of a chair, and immediately felt like it was too intimate. So I folded it, hid it in my closet, showered, tried to wash away the taste of her lips, the smell of her perfume. It didn't work. Maria texted around 12:30. "Saw you at the restaurant. Didn't want to interrupt your work dinner," I replied. "It was complicated." "I bet." I stared at my phone. Thought about typing out the truth. Then deleted it, opened my laptop instead, started drafting a resignation email. "Dear Angela, given recent events, I think it's best if I—" Deleted it, started another one. "I want to thank you for the opportunity, but I believe—" Deleted that too. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Replaying the balcony moment at the restaurant when Richard left us alone for a few minutes. The way Angela had shivered in the cool air. The way I'd adjusted her shawl without thinking. The way she'd looked at me and said, "My marriage has been over for years, Jason. I just keep it running because the board, the investors, the brand, they all need the image." I'd told her she was the first person I'd met who made ambition look lonely instead of powerful. She'd almost smiled. That's because it is. We'd almost leaned closer then, too. But Richard had come back, and the moment shattered. Now, lying in my bed, I couldn't stop, thinking about the fact that we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. I finally fell asleep around 4 a.m. My alarm went off at 6:47. Work. Friday morning felt like walking into a different world. I got to the office early, hoping to avoid Angela. Maybe forever. Her office door was closed all morning. Karen sent me a single email at 9:15. Your 1-1 with Angela has been rescheduled. She'll follow up. Professional, cold, like nothing had happened. At 10:30, I got an email from Angela. Jason, thank you again for your support last night. Let's regroup early next week. That was it. No mention of the kiss, no acknowledgement of the shawl, just clean corporate distance. Maria found me in the break room at lunch. Okay, she said, leaning against the counter. Spill. Nothing to spill. I saw you two at that restaurant. You looked very coupley. I poured coffee I didn't want. It was for investor optics. Angela needed someone stable-looking at the table. And she picked you. She needed someone she could trust. Maria studied me. Jason, bosses don't randomly pick junior staff for personal favors, especially not married bosses. It was professional. Was it? I didn't answer. She sighed. Just be careful. This kind of thing never ends clean. I wanted to argue. But she was right. That afternoon, I walked past the boardroom and saw Angela inside, with David, with Richard, 3 of them sitting around a polished table, discussing something I couldn't hear. Angela was back in full CEO mode, hair perfect, suit sharp, wedding ring visible, tapping against a glass of water as she gestured. I stood in the hallway, watching through the glass. She didn't see me. I turned and walked away. The weekend was worse. I stayed home, did laundry, cleaned my apartment, tried to distract myself with anything that wasn't Angela Price. My sister Emily called on Saturday. You sound weird, she said. I'm fine. You're never fine when you say you're fine. What's going on? I almost told her. Almost. Just work stuff, complicated. Complicated how? Senior colleague, long story, not worth getting into. Emily was quiet for a second. Jason, don't do something stupid for someone who's never going to choose you. I'm not good, because you deserve better than being someone's backup plan. After we hung up, I sat on my couch and stared at Angela's shawl, still folded on the chair. I should have returned it. Instead, I left it there. Monday came. I walked into the office bracing for awkwardness, distance, maybe even a termination meeting. Instead, the day was normal. Meetings, emails, coffee. Angela passed through the open office once, said a polite, "Good morning" to the team, and kept moving. At lunch, Maria pulled me aside. Did you hear about the restructuring? What restructuring? HR sent a memo this morning. They're consolidating strategy into a bigger division. Cuts are coming. My stomach dropped. When? End of the month. Great. Just great. Late that afternoon, Karen appeared at my desk. Angela would like to see you. I followed her up to the 23rd floor, heart pounding. Angela's office door was open. She stood by the window, looking out at the city. Close the door, Jason. I did. She turned. No smile, no warmth, just exhaustion. I wanted to talk to you about the restructuring. I heard. Your role is safe. You'll be moving into the senior strategy division. It's a promotion, technically. I blinked. Wait, really? You've earned it. She paused. But I also wanted to apologize for last week, for putting you in that position. You don't need to apologize. I do. She looked at me directly. What happened in the car? That was my fault. I crossed a line. We both did. Silence. She turned back to the window. I'm hosting a follow-up dinner with Richard next week. Optional attendance. No, roles required this time. My throat tightened. What does that mean? It means I'm not asking you to pretend anymore. But if you want to come as... She hesitated. As someone I trust. You're welcome. I stared at her back, at the way her shoulders were tight, at the missing wedding ring on her left hand. Where's your ring? I asked quietly. She glanced down at her bare finger. I took it off this morning. Not for you. For me. Angela, you don't have to come to the dinner, Jason. I'll understand if you don't. I wanted to ask what she wanted, what we were doing, what any of this meant. Instead, I said, I'll think about it. She nodded. I left her office, rode the elevator down, and walked out into the cooling evening air. My phone buzzed. A calendar invite from Angela. Investor follow-up, optional attendance. Monday, 7 p.m. Same restaurant. Notes. No rolls this time. I stared at the screen, clicked, maybe, and went home. Monday arrived too fast. I woke up, got dressed, went to work. The whole day felt like holding my breath. At 6:30 p.m., I logged off my computer and stared at the calendar invite. Still set to maybe. I could stay home. Ignore it. Let Angela handle Richard on her own. Or I could go. I grabbed my jacket and walked towards the restaurant. When I got to the corner, I stopped. Through the window, I could see Angela already inside, seated at a table for two, her shawl draped over the empty chair across from her. She looked alone. I stood there for 5 minutes, just watching. She checked her phone, glanced toward the door, traced the rim of her glass with one finger. I pulled out my phone and texted her. I'm outside. Do you want company as your employee, or as the guy who can't unhear that night? I watched her pick up her phone through the window. Read. Look up toward the door. She stood, left her bag and shawl at the table, walked toward the entrance. I stepped off the curb and crossed the street. We met under the awning. Light rain had started. Soft, quiet. Angela looked at me. No CEO mask, no performance, just her. I left the second seat empty, she said. Not as a trap, just to prove to myself I could show up alone if I had to. And I can, she paused. But I don't want to. I stepped closer. I didn't come because I expect anything from you, Angela. I came because I couldn't stand the idea of you sitting in there alone. I know. But I also can't keep pretending this is just work. I know that too. The rain picked up slightly. She pulled her coat tighter. Let's walk, she said. We moved away from the restaurant, circling the block slowly. I won't promise I'll leave David, she said after a while. I can't, not yet. The board, the optics, I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Just honesty. No more performances. No more pretending you're fine when you're not. She stopped walking, looked at me. I took my ring off because I was tired of lying to myself every time I saw it. Not because of you, not because of us, because I needed to stop pretending my marriage was anything other than a business arrangement. Okay. But I also can't offer you a relationship, Jason. I can't promise labels or futures or... I don't need promises. I met her eyes. I just need to know you're not using me as another prop. I'm not. We stood there in the rain, close but not touching. What do we do now? I asked. She smiled faintly. I don't know. We finished the walk in silence and ended up back at the restaurant corner. Angela glanced at the glowing windows, then shook her head. I'm not going back in there. I'll reschedule with Richard. Let him think what he wants. You sure? Yeah. We stood at the corner where our paths split. No kiss, no touch, just a long, tired, honest look. Good night, Jason. Good night. I watched her walk toward her car. She didn't look back. I turned and headed home. In the weeks after that walk, things shifted. The restructuring went through. I kept my job, got moved into senior strategy, and started working more directly with Angela on investor pitches. David became less visible. Rumor was he'd started focusing on other ventures. Angela never confirmed or denied anything. We developed a rhythm. Late-night calls that started about quarterly projections and drifted into life. Shared elevator rides where we stood just slightly closer than professional. Quiet conversations on the balcony during company events, always in view of others but feeling like our own private world. Maria stayed skeptical but stopped warning me. She just watched. Waited. The office learned to read the small signals. When Angela's ring was on, she was in bored politics mode. When it was off, she was just her. I never asked her to leave David. She never asked me to wait. We just existed in this fragile, undefined space. No labels, no promises, just truth. One evening. A few months later, I walked past her office around 9 p.m. The lights were dimmed. She sat at her desk, working, her shawl draped over her chair. The ring was off. City lights reflected in the glass behind her. She looked up, saw me standing in the doorway. We didn't speak, just a small nod, a faint smile. I kept walking toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I thought about that night in the car, the taste of her lips, the weight of her shawl in my lap, the way she'd asked me to pretend to be her fiancé for one night, and how, somewhere along the way, I'd stopped pretending. She asked me to pretend to be her fiancé for one night, and now I'm the one pretending we ever stopped. Some roles end when the lights come up. Others follow you home.